I want to thank everybody who is joining us today at the American College, Center for Economic Empowerment and Equality, and the Center for Women, and this webcast, an introduction to cryptocurrency, crypto assets, and blockchain with our guest speaker today, Tyrone Ross. And hopefully today we're going to answer all of your questions, or at least most of your questions, and we're going to provide you a means to get answers to some of your questions if we don't answer them today. Tyrone is the CEO and co-founder of Onramp, which is a technology company who provides access to crypto assets for registered investment advisors, as well as an education platform that helps advisors understand and implement crypto assets in client portfolios. We met Tyrone about a year ago. Tyrone was presenting at an FPA conference on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And Lindsay Lewis on our team at the Women's Center saw him speak and came back and said, we have to know this guy. We have to get in touch with Tyrone. And so she reached out, and Tyrone was very gracious, and we've been talking since. And this is the first opportunity that we've had to present on the topic of cryptocurrency, crypto assets, and blockchain. This is a presentation, a co-presentation with my colleague, Kareem Hill, and the Center for Economic Empowerment and Equality for the Women's Center, the Center for Women. And the reason that we are co-presenting, Kareem and I, this topic is because cryptocurrency, and you'll hear Tyrone talk about this more, is unbiased, it's decentralized, it's real-time, and referred to as the source of truth, and has tremendous potential for social and economic impact, especially for underserved communities that Kareem and I strive to support here at the college. So Tyrone's going to talk about the history, the foundation, the fundamentals of crypto. And in his comments, please trust that he's going to cover, if you sent in questions, we got over 100 questions, and we sort of categorized them by whether they were relative to education, infrastructure, investing, regulatory risk. So trust that Tyrone is going to cover those in his remarks. And before I hand it off to Tyrone, I just want to mention on March 8th, International Women's Day, the Women's Center is hosting a Women Working in Wealth Summit and Award Ceremony in New York. You can find the registration. Our keynote speaker is not only Sally Krawcheck, CEO and co-founder of Ellevest. We have a ton of workshops and actionable items for you. So we hope you can join us there. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to our star today, Tyrone Ross.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Hillary. Appreciate you, Kareem, as well. Thank you for being here. I am incredibly excited by this. Again, for all those tuning in, I let the college know that I only asked for a time frame because I could go a long way with this forever. So want to make the most of the questions. I am going to cover a lot. I will stop and pause so we can take questions live and in real time. But definitely want this to be interactive, want this to be beneficial for you as I am here for you. A few places to start that I think is incredibly important. And I always thought about this when I was coming up in financial services, and just in general, when I would go to hear people speak, it's like, well, who is this person and why do they have any authority to be speaking on this topic? One of the things that I'm very passionate about is crypto assets for the underserved, as Hillary mentioned. And I say that because that is how I discovered crypto assets growing up in a home that was underserved, that was unbanked and eventually underbanked. And I realized firsthand when I received Bitcoin to my phone in real time, and then I sent it to someone else in real time, and that whole transaction took less than 3 minutes, that this was something that would have changed my life and my family's life had it been around when I was growing up. So I come to crypto as a social justice movement, digital social justice, if you will. To me, is it inarguable at this point that you would fight for equality and equity? I'm more of an equity person than equality. I don't believe America has a problem with equality. I think we have a problem with equity. Everyone getting an equal shot at the same opportunity. And social justice, it's digital social justice. So it needs to be in the conversation when you were talking about the income gap, financial education, all things that I'm incredibly passionate about. So when I realized that, oh my goodness, this is something that can change the lives of so many. a good way to start the conversation is here. For no other reason, here's why crypto makes sense. There is a lack of real-time payment system in the United States of America, right? That hurts the underserved. The ability to walk into a bank, deposit my check, and have it settle real time. There is so many folks who use check cashing places or money orders. There's so many services outside the traditional banking realm. Also, there were so many underserved that have lacked access and ability to bank themselves, to get accounts, to be involved in the financial system because it wasn't set up for those that aren't in the know, if you will, right? That those that aren't able to walk into a bank and get an account and remain banked because, again, it's very expensive to be banked. Crypto begins to solve a lot of those problems. See, in the comments, already losing people. Oh, man. Hang with me. So it's very important to understand that's how I come to it, my lens. But there are folks who come to it through a different lens of developers or financial advisors, which I was and am, and those that continue to look at the space, and you'll see it through your own lens. No one can say you should absolutely do this or how much time it'll take. I was a skeptic at the beginning as well. I just didn't understand it. It didn't make sense to me. But when my friend actually sent me some, I understood it. So one of the things that is important to understand here, as you begin to even look at this and say, all right, I want to make some sense of it is, well, what is it? Why is it something that I should pay attention to no matter where I sit? If I'm not necessarily focused on social justice, if I'm not focused on making this a meaningful, portfolio allocation for clients, if it's not something that I'm interested in building and doing, well, what is it? And I think there's, again, a very nuanced answer, but the original sin of crypto, if you will, is the moniker cryptocurrencies. Calling them cryptocurrencies is correct, sure, but cryptocurrencies is a bad name, which is why at Onramp we say crypto assets because it encompasses the entire space, whether that's Bitcoin or Ethereum, whether that it's NFTs, whether that is DeFi, which is all the rage now. We like to put an umbrella under that. And then also the cryptocurrencies. Are there cryptocurrencies? Absolutely, right? Bitcoin is a currency, but a lot of that depends on where your feet are. If your feet are in the United States of America, it's a bad currency, right? Because every time you use it, it's taxable. And we have so many other and better options for currency here in the United States. But if you're my uncle in Guyana, or if you're in Nigeria, if you're in Venezuela, it probably is a good currency choice, if you will, to be able to retain value in your actual holdings, right? In your money. So this is one of the things that it brings to almost 2 billion people globally that have operated outside the traditional financial system. So cryptocurrencies, again, for the purposes of this conversation as well, I sit down and talk to a lot of CIOs and talk to a lot of folks that say, well, Tyrone, has no intrinsic value, or how do I value it? And the traditional moniker of currencies here makes that difficult, right? So you almost have to use this new lens of looking at crypto. So currency in this case is probably not the best term to blanket the space, even the crypto part of it. But saying crypto assets, say, okay, well, now I know what you're talking about. You're just talking about the entire space. And then you have your stable coins, which folks may know of, and we'll get into that as well, or crypto dollars, again, as we call them at Onramp, so that you can make the delineation of these are currencies, and then all of the other assets like an Ethereum or Bitcoin or Dogecoin, all the things that you hear about, you can find your proper place for those as well. And if you get anything from this talk, I'm not here to change minds. It's not here. I would like to open your minds because you're going to come to it on your own time. The skepticism is pure and honest because it is new. It's a very nascent space. The oldest crypto asset is 13 years old in Bitcoin. So there is a lot of learning here that we all are doing. There are no experts. I've been in the space 24/7, 365 for the last 7 years. I can't keep up with all of the innovation and everything that is happening here. So you come to it to your own pace. So that's a really good place to start, looking at cryptocurrencies the actual currencies that are out there that folks use to transact and pay for things. And then your crypto assets, which encompasses the Bitcoins and Ethereums and the NFTs and all those things, if you will. So that's a good place to stop and say, okay, now I can kind of create a framework of what's going on here. So the next level to that is, okay, well, these things operate on, I keep hearing it thrown around, this blockchain, right? What is a blockchain? Well, let's just call it what it is. It's a glorified database. And folks that have been beating up or skeptics in the crypto space are exactly right. So keeping this very high level, but for the purposes of this conversation, it's truly that, just a chain of blocks of information. In those blocks contains a bunch of information that everyone agrees upon that says, do we all think this is correct? Yes. Mind block. Block mind, we move on to the next block. All the transactions come in, everyone looks around, we agree here, mind block. And then that chain comes together. And the longest part of the chain, right, and it grows with information, and then it continues to link on. So a blockchain is a chain of blocks with information. Now you go level 2 on that. Okay, great, I can understand that. At the base layer, it's an Excel spreadsheet, if you will. So what makes a Bitcoin blockchain or an Ethereum blockchain unique? This is another place where I like to stop and get people to understand blockchain this way. If you go the next level of what I just said, big B, Bitcoin, the blockchain, which everyone says they're all, Bitcoin, not blockchain, blockchain, not Bitcoin. The blockchain is revolutionary, Bitcoin, not so much. Well, you're kind of right. The big B Bitcoin blockchain, right, is the chain that Bitcoin sits on, little b, and it is secured by miners who solve these hard math problems to basically solve an equation to mine that actual block inside of that long chain. So the miners are working with proof of work, right? To solve these, through computational power, to solve these problems, to mine that block. If they mine that block correctly, they get a reward, which are the little b Bitcoins. So stop here to say, a blockchain, a closed, permissionless blockchain, which Bitcoin is, means that it's trustless. So we're just running these math problems, trying to solve these problems so we can get the reward of the little b's. That makes it secure. Once everyone agrees with the miners and the nodes, mine block, we're on to the next block. And the reward for mining that, and again, very energy intensive and all these things, again, we'll get to, is those Bitcoin. And then the miner holds those Bitcoin as their reward. And then again, mine block. So the blockchain is only secure with a coin, the little b, that basically is the incentive to keep it secure and to keep it running. Without that coin, you have a permissioned, right, and closed blockchain like an IBM that says, we're going to allow you to track your avocados from California to New Jersey. We run that blockchain and we can tell you what Whole Foods it came from, at what time, and we can tell you what time it's going to get to New Jersey. That's the big difference. There's someone that is involved, they're running it, it's their chain to run, where no one is responsible for Bitcoin, right? And this is where you get into digital religion, right? It's essentially that. You have Satoshi, right? You have an individual that created Bitcoin and went away. I know this is where it gets a little spooky, right? Like, who is this person? No one knows who Satoshi is. So those of us that have bought into the fact of reading the white paper, which I think everyone suggests. I think no matter how you feel about crypto, if you read the Bitcoin white paper, it's hard to read it and go, well, that's stupid, right? You have to say, well, there's some there's something intellectually here that is interesting. Again, depending on what lens that you sit in. Again, not here to change your mind, just to open it and say, maybe there's something here that I find interesting. To me, it was when I read peer-to-peer, okay, exchange, okay. So it's like me walking up to Hillary and handing Hillary $5 and walks away. No one knows I gave her that money, but she knows it's $5. I know it's $5. Don't really need to know her name, but I walked up, handed her $5 and walked away. That's essentially what the Bitcoin blockchain provided to the world, right? Where I could do that in person, but I could never do it digitally, where I don't need to know the other person on the end of the exchange. I just know there's a limited amount of data that I need to know in order to feel comfortable transacting with them. Allow me to stop here because this is a very important place to stop, because the Center for Economic Empowerment is here and talking again for the underserved. Allow me, if you will, to take you back to 16th century slaves in West Africa and something called a susu, right? S-O-U, S-O-U. All my Caribbean people watching right now are nodding, right? I'm Guyanese. Susus are very familiar to those in the Caribbean. Go to Brooklyn, New York, and those that are there and all across the country where large Caribbean communities. And by the way, a lot of folks have them. The Hispanic folk calls it a tanda. Everyone has different forms of it. So we migrate to Brooklyn, and now I'm from Guyana. You're from Trinidad. You're from Jamaica. We just can't walk into a bank and go get a bank account and buy a house. But I know you, you know me. It's kind of trustless, right? We eat the same food. We have the same accent. We take the same bus to work every day. Okay, great. So I don't really need to trust you. I know you. We have the same struggles. We have the same background. Check. We all need money. Check. So why don't we pool our assets together, right? 5 of us put in $100, $500 pot. Then we're going to schedule when we're going to rotate that $500 to the group. I may need my $500 now because I have to pay for my kids' school or groceries. You may take it last because you just want to go on vacation. Prioritization of that. And now there's this schedule that we go through that is trustless, where I get the money, you get the money. But in order for me to get my 500, I have to have confidence of the people in front of me to make sure they're put theirs in so that I get mine at the end. Man, that sounds a lot like a blockchain, right? Trustless, there's a schedule, there's work involved, there's this clock, if you will, right? Bitcoin mines a block every 10 minutes, just about. Same thing here. So a susu, or the ability to pool assets that are trustless and everyone gets money at a scheduled outcome, is very similar to a blockchain and is a really good way to understand it. So again, you go back to the 16th century to where we are now. This is just that digital way of transacting. That's it. Just this chain of monetary policy that is in code, where it's just this clock just runs, keeps going. The base layer, Bitcoin blockchain, the little b that everyone is so fascinated about, the price, right, is not necessarily the revolution here. Once you get into the little b, then you start getting into the investment conversation, which we will start to smooth into. But just for the purposes of just setting the stage here, every time, right, 13 years now, every day, every 10 minutes, it just runs and runs and runs. And the more it becomes more Lindy, that provides financial access to 2 billion people globally that have never had it before. And it also shines a light on some of the issues and inequities in the current financial system, where I can't put a check in the bank now and have it settle now. Japan has had real-time payments since the 70s. ACH and wire goes back 60 years. So if nothing else, Bitcoin coming into the world just shines a light on that and says, hey, should probably focus on this, which is why the Fed now says, and they literally called it Fed now, even though we're not going to get it until 2023, maybe, is that a real-time payment system for individuals is on the way. I am a big crypto hippie, I'll admit, but I have to say that I feel like the way regulation is coming to the fore now, the way everyone is gravitating to crypto and Venmo and PayPal and all these things, our government had to look at that and go, all right, we need to move here. We need to innovate. We need to catch up with the rest of the world in terms of their payment infrastructure, crypto or no crypto. So I will pause there. And I know I see questions flooding in, but Hillary, I don't know if you want to take a couple and throw them out.
Yeah, we'll try to synthesize. Thank you. So the original Bitcoin that was laid out sounds a little bit like, somebody seeded the original Bitcoin, like not unlike the Easter Bunny. Who seeded it? How much? How did it get there? And then there's another couple questions around, is the mining, are they humans or are they programs mining? And then what if we exhaust all of the coin out there? What happens then? So why don't you start with those, and then we'll see if we can answer some of the questions, and we'll answer more as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. So Satoshi, again, bear with me here, talking about the Easter Bunny. So Satoshi, there's a lot of historic things here. There's an email that went out from Hal Finney and a few other folks that were involved there. And to make it clear, those of us that have been in the space, there are a few people who we think, and I think Satoshi was more than one person. A lot of people do. I think it was a group of people that just came together and used that moniker to remain anonymous. But basically it's code. So you start running the Bitcoin code, and there was an email that ran out, said basically, right, running Bitcoin, just running the code, running the actual program. And then there was a follow-up, email that said, maybe you should just mine some, right? If just in case it catches on, right? And buy some in case it catches on. So what happened was the code was built, it was released. And then ultimately, again, Bitcoin is open source, so anyone can work on it. Anyone can run it anywhere in the world at real time. You can run a node, you can mine it anywhere, which leads it to the next thing. So the miners right now are individuals who run mining rigs or set up mining from their computers. A lot of folks are mining it from computers and in their dorm rooms when crypto was first released into the world. So there are miners that actually run these, again, take a lot of power and run these mining rigs in order to solve that computational problem, right? That problem that allows them to get access to that reward, right? So run by people, but it is software and hardware put together to mine the Bitcoin. That last question is very important. So the last Bitcoin is on schedule to be mined in 2140, I believe. I'm almost certain, I'm a big believer in biotech and health and everything else. None of the folks logged in will be here, right? So there is a lot of talk on two things with that. Valid concerns, quantum computing, right? If quantum computers come and they just can do these things a lot faster and front run the transactions, how do you know that they can't take over the chain and break it? Valid, right? And I was just reading this in the CFA Institute email, the piece that was written was saying, there's some folks that feel as though quantum computing can come into the fore, like really be available in the next 15 to 20 years, right? With the last Bitcoin being mined in 2140. The other debate to that is that reward that you get from mining is incentive to secure the chain, right? Make sure it's powerful. So now if I'm a miner and the incentive is gone, then what? And this is where, again, for the purpose of this conversation, don't want to take you all down a rabbit hole, but there are fees that are charged in order for me to get my transaction in the race, if you will, in that block. So the thought process is miners would then start to get their reward in the fees. So anyone now who knows, right, the whole NFT drama and OpenSea and everything's going on Ethereum, the gas fees, you hear that a lot. So if I'm buying something for $600, the gas fees are $200-300. Is it really worth it to do that? So I hope that answers it, right? I'm trying to compress all of this so we can get to some stuff there.
There are some questions around value, and Someone made the comment that it's supposed to be uncorrelated, but of course it sort of is following the market these days. And what is the stability if not backed by a central bank, right? So how do we know it's stable? How do we value it? And why, why is it acting like our current market and tracking the market? Probably because of the human component, but I'll let you answer.
Yeah, valid concerns, right? And this is where if folks have heard the Bitcoin maxis and libertarians, where they don't want it backed by the Federal Reserve or any bank. It's just open and free for anyone to use. The code just runs. No one gets to change it. No one gets a say on, well, maybe we should mine more or make more available. So that's a really good point. And this is where a lot of folks have struggled. Well, how do I value it, right? I can discount cash flows for Apple or Tesla or, God forbid, Peloton right now. But, for any type of equity or bond, right? Coupons and all these other things, to look at bonds and stocks and cash and, traditional currencies, this is very different. You have to use new skin. So think of this as a network, right? And how do I value a network? Metcalfe's law, the value of, all of the wallets that are opened and how many wallets are opened and adoption rates and things like that. So there's new skin here that needs to be looked at when you're trying to value true technology, right? Because there is no cash flows, if you will. And to be honest, if we're being completely honest, right now, crypto is speculative, right? There is very much I think it's going to go higher for the majority of people in it. And there are those of us that look at it long term, where I don't believe it's an inflation hedge right now. We've seen that it's not recently. I never really thought it was a store of value. I just thought it was a long-term, right, a long-dated call option on a store of value, perhaps, but it's 13 years old. We all know 13-year-olds, they're highly volatile, right? Now, it was the pitch a few years ago was it's an uncorrelated asset, very correlated to risk markets now, very correlated to global macro news. You're seeing that. What's interesting is there was some data that just came out. The periods of which it becomes very correlated with the markets is about 70 days. And then after that, it kind of breaks that correlation again. So very interesting data here that we're only able to get now because it was very new and it's becoming a little older, but we need more data to really see what Bitcoin is. But right now, yes, honestly, it's a lot of hopium. It is speculative. It is a risk-on asset now for sure. Look at the price today and where it was. And crypto overall is kind of the same thing. So I feel like trying to value it, you got to look at all of these different metrics and things that are there. And again, there's a book called Cryptoassets by Chris Berninsky and Jack Tater. I encourage everyone to read Cryptoassets, Chris Berninsky, Jack Tater. I feel like this is going to be the intelligent investor of the crypto space, as you will. I know, blasphemy. But it is a really good book. I recommend it a lot. And you start to get into all these different metrics and things that are out there, realized cap, MVRV, all these weird things that I don't want to get into now, but there are some metrics and valuation data out there. Chris Berninsky and Jack Tater, I see some questions coming in. If you Google Bitcoin white paper, it'll just come up. So that gets into the valuation conversation, the correlation conversation, definitely very much correlated to traditional markets now. And truly, one of the dangers that I think the SEC has, Congress has, our administration now has, is they know that it's blind faith. They're just jumping in the pool here saying, I'm gonna buy it today, it's gonna be 160,000 tomorrow, which is why I don't like the carnival barking and people making price predictions. If this isn't going to be a long-term hold for you, meaning at least 5 years, you should just be on the sidelines and throw rocks at it, right? But if it is something that you get comfortable with on your own terms, not mine, not anyone else's, when you finally say, it may have clicked for me, I think one of the things that I always tell people is Google the most expensive restaurant close to you, see what it takes to get a meal of 4 at that restaurant, buy that much crypto of your choice, right? And just watch it. And then just see how easy it is to buy and just kind of see how it transacts and moves and correlates to markets. Just use it as a learning tool. And if you wake up tomorrow and it goes to zero, it hasn't affected your living at all. You can still pay your rent, send your kids to college, retire, and everything else. So I'll stop there.
So I think based on the questions, there's a little bit of confusion around the difference between crypto as an investment and blockchain as a means for banking. So there's a little bit of, I think we need some differentiation there.
Yep.
And miners versus users. So there are people who are mining coin.
Yes.
And there are people who are using the blockchain to move money. And I think they're becoming a little bit muddied. So if you could just try to clarify investing versus banking, because we're putting it in our terms of our current banking structure and our current financial structure. I think people are trying to put it in those terms and it doesn't really follow. So if you could differentiate miners versus users of the technology, and then investment and banking of crypto assets.
Okay, hang with me. I'm gonna need you to refresh me because I'm gonna start with the miners versus users. So again, the miners, and I have a really good friend of mine who is a miner, and I always tell, miners are like tellers. Yeah, exactly. So I have a good friend of mine, he's a really big miner, and I always tell people on Twitter, thank him for securing the chain, right? Just securing the blockchain. So they secure the chain. Big distinction here. Users of the blockchain is not your client that opens an account at Coinbase. Coinbase is the user of the blockchain because they settle trades on chain. You may have clients that use the blockchain, which you get into self-custody, right? I buy the crypto at Coinbase and then I take it off and I self-custody and I want to transact on chain myself. Those are the actual users of the chain. So your Geminis and Coinbases use the chain to take all of those people buying on their platform and settle those trades on chain. Very similar to someone in Nigeria or Venezuela would use the Bitcoin blockchain. I encourage everyone to look up a company, Paxful, Paxful, and local Bitcoins to look at how people are literally using this as a Craigslist, if you will, to go on, buy Bitcoins, and then settle those Bitcoins literally at the same time, turn them into local currency or local currency into Bitcoin and back and forth, literally like a Craigslist. It's fascinating to be able to transact. So those folks, again, are transacting on chain. All the miners are doing is basically just holding the railway together. So everyone can kind of bounce around and they get a reward for keeping the chain secure so folks can transact on chain. I think we're good there. So the next part of that was investment versus the technology.
Yeah, so using the technology to either move or hold money versus the speculative nature of investing in crypto.
Yep, great question.
Or Bitcoin.
Great question. So there right now, again, using Coinbase as an example, there are 70 million plus accounts at Coinbase. I'd imagine 95% of those people are just speculating, right? I'm buying this as an investment, right? I buy, how useful are crypto ATMs? That's a great question. Great, very useful for, again, underserved people in unbanked communities. That's a fantastic question. So Coinbase, the 70 million accounts there, the majority of people going to Coinbase are speculating, right? This may be an investment. I want to buy it to go higher. The technology part of it, what Coinbase allows you to do based on them being more than an exchange. By the way, Coinbase, for the purposes of this conversation, is an exchange. They're a broker and they're a custodian, right? All things that our regulatory bodies aren't happy with, that they are looking to change. So Coinbase provides all of these ancillary services, staking, yield farming, all these things that folks know about, buying NFTs now through their platform that are only made available because of blockchain technology, right? So banks, JP Morgan is very much pushing into this space, Bank of America and others are realizing the benefit of using a blockchain to settle or move money, right? And they're starting with their internal processes first. So that's how banks would look at it as opposed to those that are just buying it at Coinbase and looking for the price to go up. So many great questions. We need 4 hours.
That was helpful. Thanks for clarifying that. Some people are concerned about running out of money, miners dying, proof of ownership. And then the next big question are the legal and regulatory assets questions. So maybe you can just talk about the risks associated with miners and the assets.
Yeah. So risk associated with miners, right? So essentially, again, so China banned mining, and then a lot of that miners and power moved overseas. And now the United States, right, is the largest source of mining in the world, especially Texas, right? Again, energy intensive. So where there's a lot of energy and unused energy, folks want to migrate to. So the miners essentially are there, again, to continue to mine, to continue to be available to secure the network. That's really what they're for. And again, they get incentivized for that. A couple of things here that are really important that I think will resonate with folks. Two things. One, Intel are now releasing new chips to make it more efficient for miners to run. That does two things. More efficient means they use less energy, and it serves the purpose of, again, giving them the added benefit of being able to produce more, again, of those hard problems, to solve them, to get rewards. That's huge. The other is ConocoPhillips have recently flared a lot of their unused gas to be able to allow miners to run their network. I've also sat on a panel. I absolutely, the only thing I understood with crypto was like a nuclear fission, something panel somewhere. It was a bunch of nuclear physicists and then me at the end of the stage, but using nuclear energy as well for mining. So there, you really don't get much concern from miners outside of the fact that it's just very energy intensive. And what does that mean, for clean energy and everything else? So that's that part of it. Now, what was the other two? There was two other concerns.
And after we talked about the risks associated with miners, we were going to go into the legal, regulatory, taxes, or big questions, because again, we're all operating in the current environment. Yeah,
absolutely. So I love this part of the conversation because I recently got to sit on the SEC's recent investment advisory committee, and have actively have a conversation with Commissioner Crenshaw's office, and consider Hester Peirce a very close contact, and lean on her a lot for her guidance. So for the purposes of registered investment advisors, right, now we'll start there, all the guidance that you need is available. February of last year, February 27th to be exact, the SEC put out a risk alert, right? I tell every investment advisor I can, print it out, put it on the fridge, put it in your office, read it at your kids' soccer games. They gave you everything there that you need to remain compliant and what they expect of us as investment advisors. Also, when Onramp launched, I had the pleasure of interviewing Hester Peirce live. The SEC, she said, we have one thing we want advisors to do as far as crypto assets: be fiduciaries. Just fulfill your fiduciary responsibility. We've given you guidance. Also, go back to December of last year. They gave an update on guidance. And I believe in November, there was another release that they put out on custody and a broker-dealer guidance as well. So for RIAs, the regulatory clarity, Bitwise put out a report, the regulatory uncertainty has been the number one concern, and it's increased over the last couple of years. Again, you don't know what you don't know, but the SEC, from last February 26th or 27th, I believe, all of the guidance is there. So for RIAs, the regulatory clarity is there. Also, let's stop here. IRS says it's property, right? We consider it property. SEC, Bitcoin, right? Ethereum are not securities. The CFTC says, for the purposes of this conversation, they're commodities, right? Everything else to be determined, right? So those things are very clear. Now, if I am a registered rep, or I'm in a wirehouse to get hybrid, I want them to be securities because I'm registered to interact with securities. RIAs, right? You have all that guidance. Now, I saw someone mention these 8-9% yields that Gemini earn and Coinbase. The SEC, for the purposes of everyone's guidance here, look at BlockFi, a $100 million fine. Unregulated securities, that's how the SEC is looking at them. Unregulated securities, has been a pause on that. They want you to register these things appropriately, right? especially because 0.06%, right? In the savings account, and you can go get 6, 7, 8, sometimes $456,000 per minute in certain DeFi protocols. They aren't very fond of that. Also, in my conversations with the SEC is they are very concerned about decentralized finance and DeFi and how it may disrupt the traditional markets. I don't agree, but I understand the concern when you look at lines of code that have attracted $200 billion of flows. That's concerning. I agree with that. So there is regulation coming. Stable coins is another one, right? They very much are concerned about stable coins, their role in the traditional financial system, how those things interlock. So you're starting to see there's regulation coming. The SEC and CFTC are getting together. The FDIC is looking at this. President Biden has given some guidance on crypto assets and those things, as well as what is going to be the thought process here moving forward. I don't think they'll be banned, but you will have to pay tax, right? And they do want you to let folks know, again, first page of the 1040, do you own it, right? And paying taxes and making sure that they know you own it. And then also that, if you are transacting, that you should pay taxes. So again, that's a broad look at the regulatory landscape. They want exchanges regulated, right? So there's a governing body that oversees the exchanges. Needed, I will say, absolutely needed. And there was a question earlier that I didn't get into. I think last year was the most, 14 trillion in illicit activity, right? On chain. Chainalysis put out a report. I always encourage everyone, skeptic, love it. Chainalysis does some really good analysis on chain of everything that is happening on chain. Because again, it's open. So if you're doing anything nefarious, we can see it. You can't hide, right? But because the transaction volume has increased so much on chain, it is the smallest amount of illicit activity that has ever taken place. So pick your poison, if you will, right? Most ever, but again, in another lens, the least amount in terms of the most transactions. To me, that is concerning, but I will say this. My mother has this phrase, wherever good is, evil is present. There's still pornography on the internet. I love Twitter. There's still horrible things on Twitter. Anything that has a good component has an evil as well. People will always take things and make them evil. Cash. Use cash for good things. Folks use cash for nefarious things as well. Crypto will be no different. Regulation will come to stifle that because Gary Gensler and a lot of folks have these concerns, and I absolutely agree. In this sense, there are so many scams out there right now, so many scams. A lot of people are going to get hurt. Tying this back to the economic empowerment piece, if you look at the data of minorities, especially Black and Latinos that have finally come into the markets, they will get hurt by this because I have spent the last 15 or so years trying to get Black Americans and minorities into stocks. They wouldn't move. Crypto came, they came in mass. The data shows it, right? 17% of African Americans, almost 25% of Hispanics, very much a young, a lot of women, a lot of the LGBTQIA communities are involved in this because, again, they see it as freedom, a new way of getting involved in the space. I don't want those people hurt. So education is very important here. Regulation is important here. So I think it's regulation is coming. I want it to be thoughtful because I don't want to stifle the innovation and the opportunity that is here for the underserved, but it is coming and it is needed. And I think with that comes legitimacy for the entire space. So many good comments and questions coming through.
Yeah, so as it relates to you can't hide on the chain, it's visible. Who sees it and how do they get discovered? How do we overcome those illicit activities?
Yeah, so again, great site for folks, right? Etherscan.com, blockchain.com, right? You can go and see what is going on chain yourself. Now it may look like, AP calculus to some people, but you can actually log in and see on chain what is happening, right? The other thing I want to say, I want to pair this with the question that I thought I saw come through was, can anyone run the code? Absolutely. You can run a node, you can run the code on a computer, and you can just start running Bitcoin. You absolutely can. With that, looking at the on-chain data, because it's open source and it's just out there, what Chainalysis does is just looks on chain and see all of the transactions that are tied to wallets, and you can kind of track and see where it's going. Because again, you have these public keys, which are basically my driver's license number. You can see my driver's license, right? I put it on my car. You can see it. This allows me to drive down the road without getting pulled over. My public key is that, right? I can show Hillary my public key. She can see her public key. We can transact. My private key are my car keys. You can't drive my car without my license, my public key on it, without my car keys. That's the private key, which allows me to sign a transaction, right, on chain. So looking at all of this data, and again, there's a lot of nuance here. We would have to do these in series. Hopefully the American College has me back. We'll do this in perpetuity. But there's a lot of different parts to this that makes it all work. So that signature, every time I sign a transaction with my key to drive my car, I drive and I have my iPhone in, you can follow me. Or I use EasyPass. We know everywhere you went. And we have your driver's license attached to it. So that public key, my driver's license, my key in the car driving attached, we can, oh, okay, you got off at exit 14, you didn't pay the toll, and then you were here, right? So we can see that illicit activity of you skipping the tolls, and you drove 4 miles, you did it at 35 miles an hour. That's essentially what the blockchain and Chainalysis is doing. How'd I do?
Love the analogies. Okay. We love the analogies. Thank you. So Philip was asking about crypto assets. Some actually perform a service. Can you talk about what things crypto assets do besides being a means of exchange that gives some of them intrinsic value?
Beautiful. Great question. Here we go, right? Coin, token. So think of coin and token like an RIA and an IAR. I cannot be an IAR unless I am attached to an RIA, right? A coin, Ethereum, the blockchain, Ether, the token or the coin, in this case, the coin, and then Bitcoin blockchain, little b, the coin, right, are attached to those chains. And with that, I can use it to transact. I can pay people. I can send money. I can do all these cool things with that coin. Now, once I have a coin in a chain, I can have these tokens. Now you get into DeFi. And now I can run these tokens on the Ethereum chain. This is where you get into financial Legos. And then I say, hey, I'm going to launch my token for my lemonade stand. And I'm going to have 50,000 tokens that I launch on the Ethereum chain, right? Thanks to the coin Ether, right? And what happens is folks can say, oh, Tyrone tokens means I can get his lemonade. I'm going to take some of my ETH, right, coins on chain and convert them into Tyrone tokens. And this way I have 20 tokens to go get me a large lemonade, 10 tokens for a medium, 5 tokens for a small. So the tokenization of assets, right? Now you get into being able to tokenize or securitize real estate, stock, whatever the case may be, makes that tokenization or that token really cool. So now I'm using crypto to transact, pay for things. I'm using crypto to incentivize my own business. Now with NFTs, I can tokenize my dunk if I'm an athlete, my music if I'm a creator, and tokens and the Ethereum chain allows me to, right, non-fungible tokens, meaning I'm just going to create a bunch, and the fungible, the coin, or the Ethereum is, all right, there's a certain amount of these. So the transacting, again, some folks feel look at Bitcoin as a savings mechanism. I'm just going to dollar cost average into here and save my money, right? Whether you think that's good or great, not here to change your mind or convince you, but that's what some folks do. So a savings mechanism, transacting, incentivizing folks who want to be a part of your work or what it is that you're doing. So tokens and coins and blockchains allow us to transact and get paid and incentivized in different ways now. Hello, Web3, right? I'm warming up to Web3. But, now instead of me just giving everything to Twitter, the next version of Twitter, I should be able to get these tokens or get tipped or paid. And you're seeing that now with Bitcoin and ETH wallets on Twitter. If you want to tip people, right? Another use case for their tweets or their trolling, you can do that because of crypto. But yeah.
All right. So we've kind of talked about the background, the foundation, how to think about it, the relationship between big B, little b, how it gets mined, sort of the origin of it. Let's talk about sort of the reason that a lot of people are on this call, and that's they're getting questions about it. And they may be getting questions that folks may want to, we'll focus on the investing side of it. They want to invest in it either directly or indirectly. And I think Onramp can help with that. They may be getting some questions from their kids, because if you're my age, you probably have grown kids and they're probably in it or thinking about it or talking about it. So how do we talk to our clients about it? What is the right kind of conversation to have with our kids about it? If you can just talk about the human aspect a little bit here, given that most of our audience are advisors.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm going to address that, and I'm going to jump into a little role play. So if you have children, they're absolutely going to skip the allowance, and they're going to want Roblox coins, or they're going to want money to buy, all these things in games, Axie Infinity, all these games that are out there. So gaming is huge. Your kids are, again, going to skip the $20 allowance for a $10 token or whatever in a game or sword or whatever else. Kids are doing it. And this is very much a generational story, right? The oldest millennials are 40. When Bitcoin was released into the world, they were 27. They're about to go into their peak earning years. There are almost 70 million Gen Z. The oldest are 24, right? There's some astounding things that are going to collide here. Portfolios that advisors are going to see are going to make their heads explode. All right, allow me to role play. As an advisor now, one of the things that I want to be is techno-empathetic. Again, I've been, as an advisor in the space for 7 years. I've worked with clients who own millions and millions of crypto years ago before it became nouveau riche, if you will, now, and have walked into a lot of those pain points. Allow me, if you will, 4 things for advisors to focus on, what I call the core 4. Risk tolerance, investor policy statement, financial plan, estate plan. Mr. and Mrs. Client, I know that we have been talking about crypto assets loosely for the last year or so. When you hired me as your trusted advisor, I told you that I would guide you through markets, and my goal is to help you achieve your financial goals. We know we're getting questions from clients, so I want to lay this out for you, is if you are doing anything with crypto, in our next meeting, would love to discuss. Pause, right? Let the client go, oh, you know what? Well, I was at church and someone had mentioned this doggy coin thing. Oh, you mean Dogecoin? Yes. So we took a flyer and we just bought some on Coinbase, and now it's $500,000. Oh. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Client, remember when I first onboarded you, it was a couple things. Mr. Client, you were a 6 on the risk score. Miss Client, you were a 4. Dogecoin is a 98, right? We need to redo your risk together right now, because Dogecoin doesn't fit next to your muni bond portfolio. We should discuss. Also, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you signed an investor policy statement where we would meet 4 times a year, we would rebalance quarterly, and we agreed to this investment mix of 70-30, 60-40, whatever the case may be. Mr. and Mrs. Client, I'm certain that crypto is in no way material to achieving your financial goals, correct? Yeah. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Client, now we have to talk about reporting this. Have you thought about that? And I'll stop here to say this. The best advisors, which you all are, answer the questions clients don't think to ask. Back and roll. So now I say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, have you reported this? Oh, we didn't know. Did you report it? Yes, you got to report it. The tax implications. And now, Mr. and Mrs. Client, the last 2, which are very important, your financial plan. As I mentioned, as a part of your investing policy statement, which we need to do over again, because we're going to meet monthly if you own crypto. We're going to rebalance monthly because this is a very highly volatile speculative asset class, which is taking some time to draw out here. But Mr. and Mrs. Klein, I know right now, Mr. Klein, you retired. Mrs. Klein, you wanted to start a cupcake stand. You did. Your kids went to school. You moved to Austin from New York City. Your goals are met. You have ample cash. The market is starting to draw down. You are good. Does Dogecoin in any way materially change your financial outlook? No. Exactly, Mr. and Mrs. Klein, which is why we are going to redo your financial plan right now to include that Dogecoin as part of your investment mix for the most important reason, Mr. and Mrs. Klein, your estate plan. Mr. and Mrs. Klein, if I have no other thing to do, it is to be a trusted fiduciary, put your best interests at heart, and help you achieve your financial goals. That means, Mr. and Mrs. Klein, we need to sit and talk to an estate planner, because this is now a meaningful piece of your assets. Mr. and Mrs. Klein, I challenge you to answer this question. Who besides you understands what a doggy coin or a Dogecoin is? Think long and hard, Mr. and Mrs. Klein. I, as an advisor who is irresponsibly long crypto, and I own way too much, this is personally me, I own way too much crypto. I can't name 10 people besides me, or 5 for that matter, if they had to inherit my assets, if they would understand what a private key, a public key, that they don't understand, Mr. and Mrs. Klein. I want to protect you. So I think we should have a conversation about this. I will end here to say this. What advisors need to do more than anything is be the trusted fiduciaries that your client hired you for. Don't make it about crypto. Let us punch drunk crypto hippies handle that for you. Answer the questions clients don't think to ask. Bring it back to their goals. Bring it back to everything that you do better than anyone in the world. Serve them. Don't make it about all of that stuff, because by the way, it's not coming back. The space moves fast. You'll never get it. Let us help bring it back to you. But be conversant. And by the way, if you are a skeptic, be a skeptic. If your firm is being constructive, be constructive, but let clients know, because the advisors that are going to get fired are not the advisors who refuse to put their clients into Satoshi coin. It's not that. It's going to be the advisor that goes, it's stupid. It's tulip bulbs. We're not looking at it. Well, I own some, my kids own some, and then those folks may pass on, God forbid, and then 32-year-old Sally sits in your office and goes, hey, I have this NFT portfolio that's worth $5 million. Can you help me borrow against it? Fired, right? So anyway, I'm done there.
Tyrone, I love the role play. I think that was so helpful based on the comments. That really connected it for a lot of our audience. I think we need a part 2. Thank you all for joining us. On behalf of my colleague, Kareem Hill, and the Center for Economic Empowerment and Equality, and the Center for Women, and the American College, we thank you very much for joining us today.